Welcome back to the channel. This is Trinity Storm and you are watching 6th and final part of What If Naruko Hide Her True Self. If you enjoy this video, please like, share and subscribe to the channel. Now wasting no more time, let's start the story.
4 days after the attack, in the council room. After the invasion was over, Suna had no choice but to give up. The village had done everything it could to get better. Usually, it was proud and talked about how great it was. That stopped when the former Hokages said that they had let themselves get so weak that they were attacked while they had their trousers down. So it was up to Artemisia's army of clay warriors and, to some extent, the Shinigami to wipe out Orochimaru's forces and the Suna ninja he was controlling. Of course, many of them were still too proud to think that the witch had saved them. Even more so when they found out she was really the demon brat, hiding. That made the resurrected Uzumaki women even more angry, so they told everyone about Hiruzen, the elders, and Jiraiya, who were all in on it. By that time, Minato had already criticized his predecessor for what he had done, and he had also criticized Jiraiya as his teacher. The whole village was shocked that their beloved Yondaime, who they praised almost as much as a god, would say bad things about such legendary figures from their village. When Tsunade also said bad things about her former teammate and sensei, it made things worse. Along with Hashirama and Tobirama, who felt the same way about their former student who had become very bad. He did this by putting all his faith in a prophecy from an old summon. One who said it was great that the sacrifice of one person brought peace to the world. Jiraiya and Hiruzen Sarutobi, on the other hand, showed that they believed in sacrifice by letting abuse, corruption, and slavery run rampant in the village they value so much. Even though their opinions don't matter anymore, the two are still statues, and when the time comes, they will have their own trial. Surprisingly, after they earned Ultimisia's trust, she did give them golden needles, which are said to cure petrification and can wipe out a Gorgon's bloodline. As of today, Minato took the seat again, with the people who came before him sitting behind him. Kaharu and Homura were both taken in for questioning, and both were acting as temporary advisors at the time. Danzo almost got away from his fate, but a technique that Tsunade had told them about held him back. Everyone was surprised by how much Naruko had grown on her own, to the point where she could control Danzo and hold him like a puppet. We can be sure that none of his bad things he did behind the scenes were her fault. All she did was keep him from hurting her or other people. Ultimisia thought the technique still had some flaws, but she had no trouble catching the Yami of Shinobi, leaving him under a lot of watch. Which made it harder for Root to get him out, since the puppeteering spell made Danzo tell his own shinobi to stay away. In a way, the Root ninjas who worked for him now had a new boss whom they couldn't hurt because they had been trained to be robots. Minato said, "Okay, let's get this over with," as he pulled out the files he needed. Hashirama said in a serious voice, even though his younger brother was staring at him, "We have a lot of work to do, and this is very important. This village has become too soft and focused on all the wrong things." This made the kami of Shinobi confused. "Is there something wrong, Otouto?" he asked. When Hashirama put on a fake pair of glasses, Tobirama asked him, "Hashirama, why are you wearing glasses?" Hashirama answered as Tobirama pinched the bridge of his nose, "I thought it made me look more serious." Tobirama asked Hashirama, who didn't say anything, "Can you even see with them on?" Hashirama asked his successor, who was trying to change the subject, "What's today's agenda again?" Minato answered, "To check on the status of the village and deal with criminals." Some of the council members looked haughty. Especially the representative of the Kurama clan. "Starting with the treacherous witch, I'm assuming?" he asked. Minato glared at the man and told him, "Kurama Dono, be careful with your words. Many people in this village are already in trouble." Unkai laughed at what he said, "Well, since you let your child. May I remind you that your bigotry is what got us into this mess?" Minato asked Kurama. "Unless you have something important to say about the safety of the village, I suggest you keep quiet," he said. Kurama didn't say anything, but he was angry inside. When everyone noticed that the Hyuga head was missing, Shikaku asked, "Hey, before we get into anything troublesome, shouldn't we wait for Hiashi?" Hinata walked right in wearing a kimono that made her look very royal and holding a scroll. She said, "I'm sorry I'm late. I had to make a last-minute document." Inoichi asked the young woman, "Young lady, where is your father?" He and a few other people were confused about what was going on. "About 35 days ago, my 2-san was forced to give up his position as clan head to me and my advisors because I don't have enough experience and Hanabi-chan is a small child who has never been a shinobi," Hinata said as Hanabi challenged her but got a smack on the head instead. Hinata then showed a document that had been stamped. The stamp belonged to her clan, and only the clan leader or, on rare occasions, the clan elders could get it. But no one knew that 90% of the elders had been killed in a brutal way. Even though they died quickly, it was better for them than for Hinata's grandfather, who had to fight until his life force ran out and died soon after collapsing. Ironically, Hinata asked for a representative at the same time, but she changed her plan to stand up for her clan. Shikaku looked over the document and said, "Well, this isn't natural, but it's also not illegal." Minato said, "I see, okay. Welcome, Councilwoman Hyuga," and Hinata nodded as she sat down. "And of the council elders?" asked a random person. "They are being held and questioned. It's clear that my old students thought that age made them wise, but they are weak in both strength and intelligence, and they will probably be tried as criminals," Tobirama told the council, shocking most of them. Sume rolled her eyes and said, "I knew those wrinkled bags of garbage were up to something fishy." Tobirama nodded and told Inuzuka-san, "You're right, Tobirama," to show that he agreed. Anyway, Suna is currently without a cage because it was revealed that Orochimaru killed him. Orochimaru planned this invasion and killed the cage when he didn't need him anymore. "That's why Suna's shinobi force attacked us," Minato said as the council thought about how to help a village that was probably in a worse situation than their own. A few people were shouting for things that were not fair, which were shot down because they would have killed Suna. It didn't help that the Wind Daimyo lost a lot of money because he sent his missions to Konoha to save money. Since they were so desperate to go to war, they were probably already close to an economic downturn. This is likely true, and so is the number of their soldiers, since their invasion failed and Artemisia sent in a foreign enemy force to stop them. Then again, it was those clay warriors who embarrassed Konoha by saving them and catching any stragglers to lock away. Most of the time, all they did was talk about how bad the damage was and where they needed to start fixing things. Luckily, no civilians or foreign tourists were hurt or killed, and very few were hurt, which did help some people save face. Now that they had everything they needed to know, all they had to do was face Jiraiya and Hiruzen. Minato said, "Bring them in," as some more loyal shinobi with dolls came in. The dollies carried the bodies of the Gama Sennin and the Sandaime Hokage, whose bodies had turned to stone. People gasped and looked shocked at the government, but they were quickly quieted. Minato still had those golden needles, but he put them away for now. Minato said, "Now we can start the process of punishing these two for abusing a clan member and abusing a child, as well as several acts of power abuse, as everyone took the accusations against two well-respected shinobi seriously." Ultimicia's castle was built at the same time. Before she knew where she was, Naruko sat up and quickly breathed in and out. "Oh, good, you're finally awake." Naruko turned her head to see Ultimicia come in. Sensed that her power was much stronger than her own. Naruko realized that this was not the clay double she made the first time to trick Tsunade. She now remembered that her ancestor had been brought back to life and brought back to the living world. Now that she thought about it, she didn't really know what to do now that Ultimicia was alive and her abusers were probably being punished. Ultimicia said in an annoyed voice, "That homunculus child would stop bothering me and everyone else by always asking about his sister's health." Naruko said, "Ancestor, please forgive Roxas-kun," as she tried to stand up and bow her head. Ultimicia told her, "Sit back down, you're not ready to stand up. You used up too much mana, and that Toad was more dangerous than he looked. If I had been there alone, I would have wiped him out in the whole arena." She got down on her knees next to Naruko's bed and put her hand under her chin. "Let's catch up, Naruko. It's been a while since I was just a piece of your mind," she said as Naruko smiled. "Ancestor, I'm sorry for being selfish, but I didn't know what you wanted to do now that you're fully alive when I asked for your help," Naruko told her. Ultimicia told the sorceress in training, "Even with all your knowledge and skill, you are still a child." "How old are you? 10 or 11? She asked. Naruko shook her head and said, "I'm 12 now, but Menma and I will both be 13 in October." Ultimicia narrowed her eyes and said, "Of course, this stupid world keeps making child soldiers. I guess it's not enough to use sentient masses of negative chakra as weapons while treating their hosts like vermin," she said with a lot of restraint. She then tilted her head and said, "I could be called a hypocrite for teaching you these things when you were a child. Whether it was for revenge, destruction, or just self-defense, you still have a lot to learn. Would you be willing to teach me more ancestor skills?" Naruko asked, feeling hopeful. "You might have a lot of spells and skills, but that's not enough. I'm not much of a fan of fuinjutsu or physical combat, but there are ways for you to do better, especially with a name like Artemisia. Naruko blushed when her new name was mentioned. She said, "It sounds too much like my own name, and you haven't even graduated yet." Naruko asked, "What would you call me, ancestor?" As the woman looked straight into her golden eyes. Artemisia was quiet for a moment before she said, "Morgana would be the best name for you." Downstairs. Kushina looked at the homunculus child that Naruko saved and was amazed. His name was Roxas, and he was said to be a clone made from different DNA samples, including some from Hashirama himself. While Kushina thought about whether or not her daughter did the right thing and whether or not she had the right to judge Naruko, or Artemisia, as she liked to call herself. She could see clearly that she had saved the life of a child who deserved to be happy instead of being forced to fight on the front lines without a choice. As he ran up to Kushina, Roxas asked, "Oba-chan, do you want to see my drawings?" "Okay, Roxas-kun, what do you have?" she asked him with a happy smile. Roxas took out his sketchbook. "Me and Nei-chan. Nei-chan is pretty magical, Oba-chan lives with me and Nei-chan, and I'm a knight for Nei-chan," he said as he showed each drawing. Kushina laughed and said, "Those are nice drawings, Roxas-kun," as she patted the boy on the head. "When Nei-chan wakes up, I'll show her." "Oba-sama is right now checking on her," said Roxas as he looked at the stairs where Artemisia had gone. "Naruko-sama should awaken soon." As loyal as ever, Anna said, "She is much stronger than she lets on." "Pardon me, Anna-san, but why aren't you in Kiri if you're from the Gorgon clan?" Kushina asked, not knowing that she had made Anna angry. "I won't join forces with those killers," Anna said in a cold tone. "Oba-chan, Anna-ne doesn't like to talk about the mean people in Kiri." Roxas said, "They hurt Anna-ne," and Kushina nodded. Kushina said, "I'm sorry for being rude, Anna-san." Anna turned her head away. "I'm sorry for my outburst, Kushina Dono," Anna said in an attempt to sound sorry. Kushina didn't know about the bloodline purges in Kiri. Like many other clans, Anna's sisters and parents died so she could escape. But Anna's attackers got what they deserved quickly. In the form of her ancestor, Naruko found the ringleaders behind the massacre of Anna's family and it's too horrible to say. Death and simple painful methods would have been enough. Hatred was rewarded with hatred, which turned into fear. Many of the Purge supporters were scared by the public display Naruko left behind. Hatred breeds hatred, but fear. Fear is contagious, and many of the supporters were shaken by the deaths of their allies. In the end, Mei Terumi won the war for her rebellion, and the former enemy grudgingly accepted defeat, at least those who survived and surrendered. Back to Anna, she wanted to put Kiri behind her even if there was a new Mizukage who would fix things and make her village strong and safe again. With no purpose, she turned to the young woman she would give her undying loyalty to. Now Anna, who used to be Medusa, watches over Naruko as a guardian and tries to help Naruko achieve her goals and aspirations in any way she can. When Naruko came down the stairs, her ancestor followed her. Nei-chan. Roxas ran up to the older girl and hugged her around the waist. Naruko smiled as she rubbed the back of his head and asked, "Why did you wait so long, Nei-chan?" He asked in a worried tone. Nei-chan had to take a break. Naruko said, "I did use a lot of power to beat the bad guys, though, hoping that her adopted brother would understand." "Okay, can you look at my drawings?" Roxas was excited as he picked up his sketchpad and said, "I drew Oba-chan today." Naruko then said to Kushina, "That's good, Otuto. Is it okay if I talk to your Oba-chan for a minute?" He said. "Okay, I'll draw more while you talk," Roxas said as he ran back to his spot, where Anna was watching over him. "Naruko-chan?" Kushina asked her daughter as she walked up to her. When Naruko said, "Yes," a teary-eyed Kushina gave her a big hug. "Oh, my darling. Oh my angel. Please forgive your mother, who is a baka. I tried to argue with your dad, but he's a bigger baka. When I get my hands on that sleazy godfather, I'm going to skin him alive and make a rug out of that old monkey's skin." Kushina yelled as she changed from a sad mother to a woman who wanted to get even. Which made it hard for Naruko to escape her mother's hold on death. Artemisia found it funny and a little sad. She felt a little sad that she never got to spend the rest of her life with Morgana, who she hid away. She hoped that a good Samaritan had taken her in and raised her after the sorceress herself had died fighting a large army on her own. Who needs power to step on other people when you can be happy with the love of your family? After a month. At this point, Konoha had recovered from the attack. There were many questions about what happened to Naruko and Ultimecia, who had weakened what was left of Orochimaru's forces and forced Suna to flee. Minato, who retook the hat, said that they were official allies, but it was hard for the village to believe since they were messing with missions. No one was hurt except for those who got too close to Karen's camps. The clay warriors and golems were very sensitive to who was friend or foe. On the other hand, many Konoha shinobi felt the same way and got caught in the crossfire before being forced to retreat. This did cause some protests, but the village's government shut them down and told them they can't have everything their way. The best way to describe what everyone did was barbaric, not justifiable, and the daimyo wants to see this when he arrives. As for the family, Naruko had given her father a chance, but she stayed neutral because of what he had done. Ultimecia didn't believe in random hatred just to keep her cousin from hurting herself. Kushina was easier to get along with because she knew how hard it was to be a Jinchuriki and a foreigner in a new village. Menma already knew what was going on and knew he wasn't a gift from Kami or a single person. Now that a month had passed, Tobirama was the judge for the trial. He watched as the Anbu walked in with the still frozen statues of the Sandaime and Sannin. Kushina glared at the statues as she kept a warm hold on Naruko. She could also feel Ultimecia briefly flaring her presence as she likely cloaked herself to stay hidden. Now that the truth is out, they can see how far the two have fallen. The Anbu stepped forward as two of their teammates stepped forward and hesitantly used the golden needles they were given, not knowing how they would work. When they stabbed their needles, the sharp objects melted and crumbled away as the petrification was released. The Sandaime and the Sannin had woken up. "What am I doing? Naruko is missing," Jiraiya asked before he realized that everyone was around him. Where are you? She's going to ruin the town," Hiruzen exclaimed when he saw what was going on. Jiraiya of the Sannin, Hiruzen Sarutobi, you are both on trial for abuse of power, abuse of children, and possible conspiracy, Tobirama said as a big folder landed on their defense. "How do you two plead?" he said. Both men were shocked by Tobirama's accusation. They had worked so hard and made so many sacrifices for their village, and now Tobirama was saying they had done something bad. "Not at fault." Both of them replied at the same time. As a prosecutor from the fire capital came to present the case, Tobirama said, "All right, let the prosecutor start with opening statements. Ladies and gentlemen of Konohagakure. According to Naidame-sama, the defendants have committed, among other things, abuse of power, abuse of children who are clan heirs, and possible conspiracy," the prosecutor said as he stood up. "For details, we must start at the beginning. You may all remember that the Kyuubi attack happened on October 10, almost 13 years ago. There, it was said that Naruko Uzumaki was an orphan and had the Kyuubi inside her. This is a total lie," he said, making some people gasp and others look confused. Since this was supposed to be a civilized case, many people had already stopped yelling about demons, witches, and everything else. In reality, Menma Uzumaki was the real Jinchuriki. The prosecutor said, Naruko-san had a twin brother, and the twins were separated at birth so that one could be trained to be a loyal guard dog and the other could be trained to be a slave for the village. Jiraiya slammed his hands on the table in anger and said, "Bullshit. Menma learned to be loyal, and Naruko had to learn how to behave," he said before he was held back. The prosecutor said, "That's the same thing, Jiraiya-san. You just want to make it sound more polite." "Sensei?" Jiraiya turned to Hiruzen and asked. The Sandaime was hesitant and said, "No comment." Now, the Yondaime did want Menma to be seen as a hero, but as a child, Naruko was in danger of being attacked all the time because she was thought to have the Kyuubi at the time. Hiruzen Sarutobi had forgotten that he has full power as Sandaime Hokage. So, a threat to his power should be a threat to the whole village. However, all he did was make a few warnings and jail sentences. Leaving Naruko-san in the same place she was before, afraid for her life, the prosecutor said as things got worse. That includes child abuse if you count separating children from their parents, Tobirama said, agreeing with what he had said. The separation is also against what the parents said in their wills, Naidame-sama, the prosecutor said as Jiraiya couldn't look away from his student's stare. Well, he no longer has any students. What does the defense say to counter the claim? Tobirama asked. Jiraiya did what was expected and did something crazy, it was a necessary sacrifice. All shinobi must sacrifice. Kids can't learn anything unless they lose something along the way. He would have kept talking until Tobirama interrupted him. And Jiraiya-san, what have you given up? Tobirama asked. If I didn't know better, I'd say that everything has gone well for you so far. Jiraiya wasn't ready for the question, so he said, of course, I had to split up my godchildren. He had a few more excuses, but he thought they would only end badly for him. I also couldn't continue my famous works of literature, he added. Even so, he said it. Objection. Jiraiya-san, writing pornographic books is not a duty. Are you the one who wrote Icha Icha Paradise? He asked the prosecutor. Hiruzen sighed and said, Jiraiya, I think you should keep quiet. Jiraiya already knew not to talk about his hobbies, so Jiraiya didn't need to be told. Be quiet, that's very professional. It proves the claim even more. The prosecutor said this as Jiraiya cursed under his breath. Especially since there are rumors about how you would get such information, Jiraiya said. Hiruzen Sarutobi, how do you refute the claims? Tobirama asked in a way that was a challenge. As my student said, it was for the good of the village, Hiruzen said after taking a deep breath. The village was weak, and we only had a Jinchuriki to show how strong we were, but Menma had to be trained first. To keep the village safe, it made sense to keep Naruko around and use her as a Jinchuriki to trick people who might be a threat, he said. It's silly, even though a Jinchuriki is often seen as a military asset these days. The prosecutor began to talk, which made Kushina even more angry. Sarutobi Dono, you only made an enemy out of the wrong person. In fact, by doing this, you gave the people in the village someone to blame if someone attacked. In fact, if Naruko-san is an important part of your military, you put the safety of the village at risk. You would have been better off not telling anyone. The prosecutor said that his statement only made the former Hokage look stupid. Even though a lot of the audience didn't like the idea. Even so, many people thought they had every right to get revenge. But the few nobles here just laughed at them and made them look like they were barbarians. Which only made the people in the village feel dumb and naive. They still wanted to blame Naruko more, but now they were considered child abusers by the law. It wasn't a surprise that other villages abused Jinchuriki and that their daimyo gave them permission to do so. Though it was worse for them when they attacked a real child. Even worse, she was Akage's daughter from a clan that was in danger. Killer B of Kumo would never be attacked because he was raised by the Sandaime Raikage, who is the brother of the current Raikage. It was a sentence of death, both in the real sense and in terms of reputation. After all, how can a person without a name defend their actions against someone with more power? Then you wouldn't know what I was trying to do. Demands from the councils and the people would eventually force me to say it. Hiruzen thought back. I don't see what that has to do with you, Hiruzen. Hiruzen looked confused as Tobirama spoke. Aren't you the shogun? Before the daimyo, are you the most important person in the village? Are the members of the advisory council meant to do more than just give advice, as their title says? He made fun of his old student by saying, it's clear I made a mistake by picking a man with no backbone or who has given up on life. You knew they would go to the daimyo in the end. Hiruzen argued. Even though it's a good reason, it would also be expensive for them. Depending on how things turned out, they would either win or lose their job for good. As there are several charters that limit how much power the council can get, and none of them can be changed, the prosecutor, who knew Konoha's laws, said. He is right, no matter how much power the advisors or councilmen have or try to get. It all goes back to the Hokage, and any laws that aren't in line with the original ones aren't valid. Tobirama said that he agreed. So that proves that the councils can argue and make demands as much as they want, but they don't have as much power as they think they do. Now that I've seen this, I know it's true that children and clan heirs are abused. Also, it was an abuse of power to separate the twins, since it hurt the clan and didn't help them or the village. Tobirama said after a small pause. Wait, I taught Menma to care about the village and understand what it costs. He should be able to say something. Jiraiya said this, but he forgot that Menma had given up on his beliefs. After that, Menma was able to sit down. After being told to tell the truth and nothing but the truth in his testimony, he was then allowed to answer questions and talk freely. The prosecutor asked, Menma Uzumaki Namikaze, do you think that your teacher, Jiraiya, hurt you and your sister by making you and her split up? Objection. Hey, you're not asking the right kind of question. It makes me look bad. When Jiraiya spoke up, Tobirama slammed the gavel on the table. Be silent, Gama Senin. If you don't, I'll give you your sentence right away and charge you with contempt of court. Tobirama told the man to stop acting like a child because he had had enough. The answer to your question, Menma said after clearing his throat. Yes, he hurt me, but I'm not the one being hurt here. He told me that I would save the village as long as my sister worked as a slave in a village that saw her as a demon who needed to be disciplined, like a wild animal. Menma thanked his sister for being polite and Ultimisha for teaching him how to speak properly without slang or contractions. Even though he wanted to let go of his feelings, Ultimisha told him to let the fools mess up in front of everyone. Could you tell me more about what you mean by discipline? Asked the prosecutor. I mean like making her love the whole village. I was told stories about the heroes of the village before bed. Naruko Ne was shown the true nature of the villagers and the horrible things that happen in the real world. That as long as you're part of something big, you won't be treated with respect and will be treated like an animal because of something you can't change. Menma said while trying to control his feelings. Good boy, I know you want to choke those fools to death. But doing that would ruin you and make your sister's situation worse. As she stayed hidden, Ultimisha thought. Jiraiya clenched his teeth when he saw that Menma no longer saw things from his point of view. All of his crazy ideas turned into questions about why Menma turned out the way he did. All the time and effort he put into making Menma a dedicated, loyal shinobi of Konoha, he is now using Jiraiya's good name as a shinobi to make himself look like a fool. Jiraiya wasn't being made to look like a fool. Instead, he was being shown as he really was, and he didn't want that, no matter how true it was. I think Jiraiya-san had done a lot of bad things. That he turned me into a zealot by saying it was because of a prophecy from his toad summons. Then most likely wanted me to make Naruko believe the same things. Menma added something, which made Jiraiya look even more upset. Enough already, Uzumaki-san. You may sit down. As the boy went back to his family, Tobirama told him this. And you, Hiruzen, did you help your student because of things like prophecies that you thought were true? Something that is not liked because it often leads to disasters? Tobirama asked in a serious way. There are feuds between the Uchiha and the Senju because of prophecies and other stories, like the Curse of Hatred. People with higher status often change or misread prophecies to change the chain of command in their homes and gain power. Most of the time by cursing different people. In another world, Escanor sneezed and had bad memories of his childhood all of a sudden. Back then, it made sense. By getting the Toad contract and learning Senjutsu, Jiraiya had only gotten stronger. Knowing this, I thought they were a good investment because their great elder Toad is very smart. What Hiruzen said made Tobirama laugh. Like I said before, Hiruzen, your strength was getting weaker as you got older. So did your knowledge and sense to trust an old Toad. Tobirama said. Tobirama-sama, you have to see how this turned out. Menma could be the key to saving Konoha, if not the savior. Hiruzen exclaimed. Will Konoha stay alive, or is there more? A prophecy can be changed or worked with. How can I be sure that this isn't part of something bigger? Jiraiya was trying to hide it, so Tobirama asked. Before Jiraiya's secret could be told, Minato raised his hand and said, it's something bigger, Naidame-sama. Naidame-sama, I have to disagree with what the Yondaime said. The prosecutor said this because he didn't trust the man very much because he was Jiraiya's apprentice. I'll let you do it, Namikaze-san. Come out and talk. Tobirama spoke up, giving Minato a chance to say something. Minato took a deep breath, just like his son, before answering the question. Minato Namikaze, did you plan for your children to be split up? Was all of this okay if you died before your time? The prosecutor asked. Minato shook his head and said, no, it wasn't okay. At first, I thought Jiraiya would make a great godfather because he was almost like a father to me. Before the Kyuubi attack, he came up to me and told me about this prophecy in which he thought I was the chosen one. He called me the child of prophecy, the man said. The prosecutor told him, please continue. In short, the prophecy said that Jiraiya would teach someone how to be a shinobi one day. That one person would end all wars and bring peace to the world one day. Minato was done. Defense? Tobirama asked. My only defense is that there is no world without Konoha being on top. Jiraiya argued. He's right, Konoha has been well prepared and has made it through the toughest conflicts. We've won all 3 wars between shinobi. Hiruzen tried to make his case. But you were caged for 2 of them and haven't done anything to end them, he said. Tobirama replied that he only knew about one war because he had died in that war. Tsunade was in the crowd, and she knew that not much had been done to stop these wars. There are many ways to look at how wars start, but there have been times when another shinobi war could have started. During the First War, her great-uncle and grandfather died, and during the Second War, she lost her boyfriend and her brother. She thought there were ways to stop wars or at least be ready for disasters, but there was no way for a single person to make sure peace. It's lucky that a sorceress who had died brought them back to life, along with stopping another threat that was almost too much for the village to handle. You put too much faith in hope and pride instead of trying to build a new world. In this time, the 5 hidden villages are the same as the states that are at war. The only difference is that some clans chose to follow the same flag. Tobirama said as he tried not to show how disgusted he was. He asked the prosecutor, "Does the state have any other questions or evidence to bring up?" Because it was his job to represent the village and its laws. There's the Orochimaru thing. Even though Thank Kami is dead, he is no longer a danger. After he did his horrible experiments, the Sandaime let him get away, and Jiraiya-san supposedly didn't catch him because they used to be friends. The prosecutor said that there was still a question of abusing power. Orochimaru surprised us all. Even then, I just couldn't kill my student. Hiruzen said, feeling genuine sorrow. The prosecutor used the defense's sadness against them. I may not understand Sarutobi-san's world, but isn't it a shinobi's job to keep their emotions from clouding their judgment? I'm not saying they should be robots, but sometimes your emotions can get in the way of your goals, he said, based on what little he knew about ninjas and how they think. He is right. Hiruzen, a shinobi still needs to be able to think on their own and have free will. But that doesn't mean you should feel too sorry for criminals or get too emotional about them. This led to an attack on the village, which would still be in danger if this Orochimaru person was still alive. Still, I remember how sad you were when he died in battle. Hiruzen cursed Tobirama's choice of words as he listened to him talk. Jiraiya was no different, since he had no way to fight back. A failed mission is a failed mission, but you can do something about the reasons why it failed. Then it can have a bad effect on you. Jiraiya did care about Orochimaru, and they had a sort of love-hate relationship. They were almost like brothers and sisters, but he couldn't bring himself to work harder to find the snake Sanin and kill him. No answer? So then, I think I know what I think. Unless both sides still have something to say. Tobirama said, then turned to look at the jury. Even though he still had more trials to go over, the prosecutor said, nothing right now, Naidame-sama. Even Hiruzen knew that he had no chance. Even though he and Jiraiya still hoped that they could talk to the daimyo about it and get him to change his mind. Hoping to convince him that their trouble and hard work shouldn't be wasted. That the old way of thinking of the former Hokage is out of date and that things need to change. Both of them didn't know that the daimyo was also there, but he was covered with a strong genjutsu to keep any kind of corruption from getting to him if the two tried to appeal. For now, their fate was up to the jury. While the Sandaime Hokage and the Gama Sennin have been loyal to Konoha and kept it safe for many years. We, the jury, find them guilty on all counts, including abusing their power as clan heirs and Hokage and Sanin, the jury speaker said. Okay, then. I'll seal your chakras away forever and make you both do community service to pay off your debts to the village you love so much. As well as giving the Uzumaki Namikaze family whatever they think is fair. Tobirama said as he slammed the gavel down and finished his decision. The two men were shocked to find out that their work had been for nothing. Still holding on to the hopeless idea that the daimyo will save them by making them look like heroes who have been wronged. Only for the hopelessness that was about to hit them, and they had to pay for what they did. But as they were getting more and more upset, an Anbu showed up to stop the end of the trial. What's the meaning of this? Tobirama demanded. Naidame-sama, the missing ninja Kisame Hoshigaki and Itachi Uchiha have been seen, and everyone should stay inside. As Tobirama narrowed his eyes, the Anbu told him to stop. Lock down the village immediately. As security started to get ready, Tobirama gave the order. Naruko turned her head to look out of the corner of her eye and saw Ultimecia appear for a nanosecond before disappearing. Most likely to figure out what was wrong. The old woman did spend the last month learning about the new world she had opened up. She was definitely interested in the idea of dangerous high-level criminals. With the ninja gone, Asuma Sarutobi and Kurenai Yuhi, along with a few other Anbu members who had tried to take them on before, were fighting the two missing ninja. Only it didn't work out very well because the two Junin were the only ones left. You know, If Kushina-san hadn't beaten Kakashi to a bloody pulp. I wouldn't mind if he helped us out here. Asuma said as Kurenai scoffed. Itachi was always the better fighter than Asuma. Kurenai said, seeing as Itachi made her genjutsu useless. Wow, Itachi-san, you've got some fans here. Kisame said, I almost wish I was as famous as you were, but he didn't seem impressed. Over the past few years, Konoha has become more lazy, Kisame. But don't let that get in the way of your work. Itachi warned while he kept using his Sharingan. Something from Konoha was stronger, so the Uchiha was right. Itachi quickly noticed the attack as he grabbed Kisame, but he didn't know what it was. The old swordsmen from Kiri were surprised to see that Itachi was moving around more, as if he felt in danger. The threat came from the sky, where a huge rune appeared and started sending out waves of ethereal blades over where they had been standing. I've heard of summoning animals, but weapons? Kisame asked, really confused but also kind of interested in the idea. This isn't chakra. Kisame, watch out for your environment. Itachi told them to be careful as another rune appeared under them and almost stabbed them. Then a laser almost killed them. How the hell isn't it chakra? I know that bloodlines are special, and this can't be genjutsu because you would have broken it by now. Kisame said that he knew there were strange kinds of ninjutsu, but he didn't know what to do with something that didn't use chakra. I can't explain it either. The basic idea is the same, but the function and use are different. As he dodged another wave of blades, Itachi said. As they tried to figure out why they were being attacked. Ultimisha made a big splash by floating into the air and landing in a graceful way. Most of what she said in her introduction was based on how she looked and how much power she gave off. Who the hell is that chick? Kisame asked with pride. Itachi looked at Ultimisha for a moment before saying, Kisame, that woman is behind the attacks. No one knows what her power is, but it is strong. He foretold. You've got to be joking, Itachi. This woman looks like a leader of one of Hidan's religious groups. Kisame said this to make fun of how she looked. First it was a toad, and now it's a fishman. Ultimisha said as she used magic to make things happen around her. I've got this. Kisame said this as he ran quickly towards the witch. If Kisame hadn't ignored his partner's warning. If he had known what was coming, he would have been better able to handle the attacks. As Kisame got closer, fire and lightning came close to hitting him. He tried to slam Samahata down on her, but just as he was about to do that, Ultimisha was protected by a barrier that gave her enough time to cast 2 quick spells. Double. Ultimisha cast, letting her use 2 spells at the same time. Kisame didn't run away when she started to use her magic, Sloga. Faraga. She yelled, sending Kisame flying away with a puff of smoke coming from his cloak. Kisame laughed at the thought of having to fight someone strong. He tried to stop his fall, but he lost his balance and rolled away. He realized that something was making it hard for him to move and was also messing with his senses. Kisame, she did something to you that hurt. Itachi said this because he could see that the mana was having an effect on Kisame. Kai. Kisame yelled, but he didn't feel anything different. It's not genjutsu. Itachi warned them, but Ultimisha didn't let them get back on their feet. Blizzaga. Ultimisha cast as a huge block appeared around them and tried to pierce them. Amaterasu. Itachi replied while he burned away most of the ice. Thanks for the gunpowder. Water style. The shark bomb jutsu. Kisame yelled, but when he looked, he saw that his water was coming together very slowly. When it did form, their new enemy had already stopped his attack. With Faraga. She cast again, destroying the sharks. Kisame sighed, damn, I think she poisoned me or something when she hit me. Even hand seals aren't being used. He said that he was aware that Ultimisha was a strong enemy. You lack patience, Kisame. You need to make plans like I do. Itachi said as a group of crows took him away. Then he came up behind Ultimisha and tried to stab her with a tanto that was hidden. Sneaky tricks won't work, Kinslayer, he said. As Itachi's attack came back at him and turned him into smoke, Ultimisha told him. Ultimisha raised her eyebrow and asked, repeat? As the real Itachi came out, she said, that's weird and annoying. Fire style. That's a great fireball. Itachi yelled as he tried to see how fast the woman could move. But the fire came back at him. A direct attack is not enough, he said. Ultimisha told him as she threw more blades at him. Itachi, on the other hand, was able to dodge the fireball. He threw a few kunai and shuriken at them to stop them. They were stronger and faster than us, so we couldn't beat them. Itachi's cloak had a few holes and tears because of this, but he didn't get stuck. Kisame found the strength to move faster and helped try to block most of the weapons. Even though they weren't regular swords or specially made blades for expert kenjutsu users. They were made of pure energy and were very strong, so they wouldn't break when used. This lady is serious. I take it back. Kisame said as he grinned. If this pair had been zombies, they would have been dead. Itachi said this because he knew Kakazu would get too excited and Hidan would be useless without his arms and legs. You might be able to catch her with genjutsu. You know, just stop it. Kisame asked. Itachi thought about it and decided to try it. He said, give me a chance. When Kisame felt the magic leave his body, he nodded and yelled, water style, water bullet. Protect, Ultimisha said as she put up another wall around herself. Itachi was able to get closer to Ultimisha after the water bullet pushed her back a few feet. Itachi then threw a few kunai and shuriken at her, hoping to hold her down long enough to surprise her. The barrier stopped the attacks, which gave Ultimisha a lot of time to plan and prepare for her next move. Eroga. Ultimisha cast a spell as she sent a strong wind gust at him. Fire style. The Phoenix Flower Jutsu. Itachi fought back by using enough power to stop the wind. As they fought, Kisame ran up to Ultimisha and made more hand seals with the remaining water. He yelled, Hidden Mist Jutsu. As he surrounded her in a thick mist that made it hard for her to see. Itachi then moved closer and showed his tanto again. Ultimisha quickly used one of her ethereal swords to block the attack. Even though she wasn't strong or fast enough to keep up with the former Anbu captain. Itachi was actually holding back, which gave Ultimisha the chance to hit him by impaling him and putting more swords into his chest. Then, when Itachi blew up and threw her to the ground, she realized it was a trap. When Ultimisha got up, she saw Kisame getting Samahata ready to hit her. As she hit the sword, she said, Thundaga. Samahata started to eat the energy, which surprised the woman. Nice try, he said. Samahata eats chakra, so I guess. He stopped when he heard Samahata making noises that sounded like it was sick. As Kisame was thinking, what the? Because Samahata was acting crazy, he was hit by a beam of energy. Even so, Itachi had time to strike. But for a short time, Ultimisha was surrounded by bright light, but she didn't move. Itachi thought she was trying to build another wall around herself or get ready to fight off more attacks. He hoped that his genjutsu would be enough to get rid of this threat. When he finally got her attention, Itachi looked into her eyes as they changed shape. Tsukuyomi. Itachi was briefly taken to the world in Ultimisha's mind after the attack hit, but he was sent back out right away. When he looked back at Ultimisha, he saw that her eyes were rolling back in her head and she was shaking violently. When she started gurgling loudly and ink started coming out of her mouth and eyes, that was when things got really scary. Before Itachi could figure out what was going on, a rune right under him went off and put him in a barrier with chains all around him. Itachi thought this was some kind of distraction, so he tried to shunshin and get away, but he only felt more held back. You aren't really my opponent. As the thing slowly turned into clay, Itachi told it. The clay creature was then covered with different kanji, which meant that a seal had been broken. It set off a powerful bomb that blew up a few meters of the street and made a crater that was probably 20 to 30 meters deep. Itachi was able to stay alive by using a technique that could only be used with his Mangekyo Sharingan. The Susanoo was like ethereal armor that was hard to break through, and even though it wasn't fully formed, it was just about enough to keep him from dying. She's not here. Did she send someone else in her place? Itachi kept his Susanoo up and thought to himself. I thought you were still in court. Not only that, but you also stopped me from fighting. Ultimisha said this with a voice full of discontent. I'm sorry, ancestors, but I'd rather keep out the invaders. I heard that men in black cloaks with red clouds were coming. Said a voice that was Naruko's. And the boy also decided to follow? Ultimisha asked, but Menma didn't say anything. He's a little too loyal. I should remind him that he has his own free will. As Itachi and Kisame got back together, Naruko said. Just turn down the fog. I want to see what my enemy looks like when they lose. Ultimisha said as there was a loud thumping sound. Eroga. Naruko cast a spell as she let out a stronger wind that blew away the mist. Once Itachi and Kisame knew what was going on, they were surprised to see Naruko and Menma. Both have new clothes now. Naruko wore a black outfit with blue accents that showed off her red marks on her stomach. Menma, on the other hand, was covered from head to toe in strange silver armor with red lines. 2 people against 3, isn't that unfair? Kisame didn't want an answer. Naruko told her, don't screw up. Don't boss me around, you little brat. Kisame berated. I didn't mean to talk to you. As soon as they saw that Menma was gone, Naruko spoke up. An attack came from behind Kisame, but he blocked it quickly. He looked to see how quickly Menma came into view. Not only that, but he also pulled out a big sword and began hitting Kisame hard and fast with it. Even though his attacks were not as strong as Kisame's, he was much faster, making it hard for Kisame to keep up. What a rascal! Kisame yelled and moved out of the way just in time for Menma's sword to miss and hit the ground. Grab it! Kisame yelled as he cut at Menma with his sword. Menma had to put some chakra into his arm to make it stronger so he could catch the sword that was wrapped in a bandage. Samehada attacked Menma right away by sending out big spikes, but it wasn't enough to break through his armor. Menma used Kisame's surprise to his advantage. He pushed Kisame's sword away and cut down on him, leaving a big cut on his face and a big hole in his coat. Itachi turned his attention back to the 2 magic users who were still fighting. He was on the run because the way the attacks were set up left him confused and shocked. Magic wasn't as strong as chakra, but it was rarer and had a lot more potential. Itachi could only fight back against the attacks in a limited number of ways. Even worse, the Sharingan couldn't predict the attacks or copy them to learn more about how they work. Ancestor, I think it's best if we make this guy go away. He could be a threat in the future, but we need to learn more about him and the people he hangs out with. Ultimisha's eyes got narrow as Naruko spoke. Fine, but when I ask you to explain why, do it later. Ultimisha said this as she kept throwing weapons at Itachi's Susanoo, which eventually broke. As she kept attacking Itachi, who was hiding in the ground, Ultimisha let Naruko come forward and say, I'll pull him out. You kill him, she told him. Yes ma'am. Naruko said as she pulled out a weapon that was a mix of a scepter and a halberd. Itachi didn't take any chances and tried to fight back. Lightning style. Lightning dragon jutsu. He yelled. Quake. Ultimisha cast a spell that threw Itachi out of his spot and stopped the attack by calling up a pillar from the ground. As Itachi tried to get back on his feet in the air. As Naruko raised her weapon and slammed it down, he didn't realize he was already in her trap. Large crystal pillars started to fall from the sky, turning the sky black. There is no punishment, and there is no way out. Even in the most remote places, the birds will sing about tomorrow, she chanted before slamming the weapon down again. Please. Lordless Konoha. Naruko yelled as the pillars smashed through the streets and headed towards Itachi, who was trying to use Susanoo again. But Itachi wasn't quick enough, and a powerful explosion that broke his armor hit him. The Uchiha Slayer was thrown around as he hit the ground several times before coming to a stop. Knowing that he isn't ready and isn't healthy enough to keep fighting the unknown, Itachi knew he had to get away. Kisame, it's time to go. Now. Itachi gave the order when he saw Kisame fighting with Menma over power. Hey, I think I've got this kid. Kisame tried to argue and put more pressure on Menma, but Menma used his strength against him. So, Kisame was thrown over the shoulder of the boy in armor and landed hard on his back. I think I've got this fish. Menma gave a snort in response. Itachi was able to get to him before Kisame could say anything. Now that he was holding on to his partner, Itachi raised a single-hand seal and disappeared in a clock of crows. All of them were moving fast enough that the knight and the 2 sorceresses couldn't hit them before they fell. The crowd of ninja and regular people kept being scared because of what they had just seen. The real problem with the Uzumaki clan and their demon child was much worse. Someone who would no longer warn with words but instead punish with actions. Someone they couldn't do anything about and had no chance of beating. After a few months. After the attack and the trial, time went by. The next day, the daimyo showed himself to everyone and said that he would support the Hokage who had died before. That he would make sure the Hokage has all the power in the village and that the Hokage can only answer to him, the daimyo. This didn't mean that you couldn't argue with the Hokage if he abused his power or if a possible successor did the same. Many days and nights would pass while laws were made to keep the balance of power safe. Starting with Hiruzen and his student, who couldn't get their case heard on appeal. Both were stripped of their status and chakra and then made to work to make up for their damage. Even though it scared some people, it did affect their spy network and their ability to attack the villages. It was surprising to see that Ultimecia, of all people, was given the chance to help strengthen the village as a sort of regent. It's kind of like a bridge between the village and the fire capital. Along with keeping the village under control when things are bad. They don't need a civil war, and Naruko said that she used her magic to save a number of Uchiha clan children, as well as a number of adults who were retired or working in civilian jobs. Even though it was hard to believe, Makoto Uchiha did say that she had been unconscious and stuck in another place before she woke up and found her way out. Despite the bigger changes, the village started to get back to a peaceful state. Naruko and Menma kept training on their own because they had different plans for the future. From what Naruko knew and what they got out of Jiraiya, they had a good idea of what was going on. The group Itachi and Kisame are in is called Akatsuki. The group is made up of S-rank ninjas who are missing from different ninjas. The goal is to get all of the bijus from all of the Jinchuriki in the elemental nations. Of course, Ultimecia thought they were all stupid. Wannabe gods who gained notoriety and now want power they can't control. She also didn't think they would know what to do if they got all of them. It wasn't arrogance. People were just trying to get ahead. No matter what, Menma had to better prepare himself and for the enemy that was coming. Ultimecia had already given Menma a new sword and armor that could fight against elements by the time the invasion was over. The metal was also very strong and could withstand strong attacks, even some high-level jutsus. Naruko, on the other hand, got a brand new outfit and staff. The staff itself was made from a lost prototype weapon called Rongomaniad and a sword called Excalibur that belonged to Ultimecia's dead lover. As a rite of passage, the witch even gave the girl marks around her stomach. Like hers, which gave it its inspiration. Even though Naruko didn't want the marks on her face or Ultimecia's weird hairstyle that looked like horns. Though when she got to a certain level of power, her hair did turn silver. Lordless Konoha used it to help her cast her spell. Now, Ultimecia called Naruko a real sorceress and suggested that she learn from experience instead of going on a training trip or joining a regiment. When Naruko started to try things out and look around parts of the castle that Ultimecia had unlocked, she ran into something. Strange ninjutsu that is like space-time ninjutsu and can lead to new lands. At first, it was scary and nerve-wracking, but Naruko wanted to take the chance to see these new places. But that didn't mean she wouldn't go home every once in a while. Even so, her subordinates stayed loyal to her in the end and would follow her when she needed them the most. The day of the trip. Naruko walked through the castle's portal and into the castle. As she looked around the forest, she saw bones and dried blood. Sometime in the past, root shinobi who were trying to fight in Danzo's name led a large group to where they thought the portal was. Instead of getting blind, righteous revenge on Naruko, many civilians and a few ninja died. They were all hurt so badly that they were almost dead. They were saved, but now they have to live on their own. Kimimaro and Kingu both attacked and killed anyone with medical supplies or skills. Naruko didn't want to be a sadist and take pleasure in other people's pain, well, maybe a little bit. Her goal was to make Konoha feel what it was like to be afraid for your life. To fight to stay alive. To push that need to live forward. In other words, make them feel the same amount of pain that she did. Make those idiots afraid for their lives and remind them why they should never do what they did. Especially for anyone who didn't make it out of the forest in time and was taken by wild animals. Just a few more piles of bones in the dens of the top predators in the forest. Now that I think about it, it's pretty funny. Maybe there was still someone out there who lived through the end of the world and was still here. On the other hand, it would be better to be that person than Kakashi Hatake. Who was going bad in a prison cell. Looking worse than any of Orochimaru's unfortunate victims who were used in cruel experiments. You might think that losing his implant and a few fingers would be enough. Minato and Kushina had a different opinion of their old friend, who cared more about himself than what his dying teacher wanted. Naruko-chan. Kushina put out a call. Naruko turned around to face her mother. The big bags she brought out made her sweat. Ka-chan, I won't be back for more than a few hours. In the worst case, a day. Kushina dropped the heavy bag and frowned as Naruko spoke. But what if you get hurt, get diabetes, or get bitten by strange bugs? I have no use for it. As Kushina pouted, Naruko said something and gave her a tight hug. I'm gonna miss you, Naruko-chan. Kushina whined. It won't be long at all. I'll be back in a few minutes," Naruko said as Kushina refused to let go. Bwaahhhhh. Kushina began to cry. A long sob later. After Kushina got herself together, Naruko changed her clothes. Menma, Minato, and Ultimisha all got there in the end. Everyone said their goodbyes, made promises, and said other things that were important to them. So, Naruko could now go to a new world through the new portal she made. Ultimisha finally stopped her one last time. "Child, no matter where you end up, don't be cocky, but don't let people think you're weak, either. Because you are the only one in our clan who isn't a fool besides me. Now, you can make your own way down the path. Just be sure to remember where you came from." Ultimisha told her something in her ear. "Thank you, relative. I will see you soon." Naruko said goodbye as she went through the portal to see what was next for her now that she had reached her goals. Now, though, she had to set new goals.
So that's it for today. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Don't forget to like, share and subscribe to the channel for more awesome stories like this. Thank you. See you all in my next video.